Today we're going to be talking about carbon molecules, and this is the last section of our biochemistry unit. The things that we talk about today really are going to be important for your understanding throughout the rest of the year. So when we talk about things like carbohydrates and lipids and how they interact to help make up your cell membrane, when we talk about our energy unit, we'll be talking about carbohydrates and how sugars break down to give our bodies energy. When we talk about genetics, we're going to be talking about nucleic acids and how those genes create the proteins that help our bodies function. So this is kind of like the base of everything that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the year. So it's really important that you understand it. If you don't, make sure that you ask in class, and we will practice some more in class, okay? The first thing that we're going to talk about are carbohydrates. Anytime you see the word ending saccharide, we're talking about a sugar. And carbohydrates are just chains of sugars. So they're a bunch of sugars that are stuck together, okay? The very simple sugars are things like sucrose and fructose, and those are going to be the sugars that are found in fruit, or simple sugar like the sugar that you buy at the grocery store. And then the most complex sugars are starches. So that would be things like your breads or your pastas or stuff like that. Those are really complex carbohydrates. They're huge, long chains that your body has to work really hard to break down. So what kind of foods are sugars? Starches found in. For the most part, anything you get from plants is going to be considered a carbohydrate. So that would be stuff like, if you look up here, wheat. So anything that is bread, like I said, we have cereal down here, we have pastas, corn is a starch, potatoes are a starch, rice are a starch. So really anything that you get from a plant is going to be considered a starch or a sugar. So why are those carbohydrates so important? Carbohydrates are really important for your body because the most important function that they have is energy. Glucose is what powers the cell for any cell function that occurs. Anything that needs energy essentially is going to come from glucose. So if you've heard of people going on low-carb diets, it's not too bad for short term because your body's using stored energy, but long term, your body's going to run out of energy, and it really needs those carbohydrates to be able to function the way that it needs to. All right, lipids are the next one. Lipids are made up of really long chains of fatty acids, and I have pictures over here. Here's a chain of fatty acid. This is saturated, and the reason it's saturated, if you remember back from when we talked about atoms, here's our carbon, and remember carbons can bond 4 different times. Well, this chain of carbons is full. It can't make any more bonds with hydrogen. There's no more room. Down here in the unsaturated, if you can see that, right here, there's a double bond, okay? So that means instead of binding to a hydrogen here and a hydrogen here, it has a double bond, so it's sharing 2 electrons between those 2 carbon molecules. The reason that that's different is because unsaturated fats have a kink in them. And because they're kinked, they remain liquids for longer. So those are going to be things like your vegetable oils, your peanut oil, olive oil, stuff like that you the liquids that you cook with. Okay, saturated fats, because they don't have a kink, become solids a lot faster. So that will be stuff like butter or bacon grease. If you've seen bacon grease that is sitting in a pan after it's cooled off a little bit, it gets hard. So those are saturated fats. And both of those are important for our body. I just kind of wanted to show you a difference because when we talk about the cell membrane, we're going to talk about the fluidity of that membrane, and this plays a pretty important role. So what kind of foods are lipids found in? Lipids are found in any type of pressed oil from plants, the more fatty cuts of meat like beef and ham and pork, and fried foods. Okay, so here you can see this cut of meat, all that white part is kind of marbled through there. That's all fat. We've got bacon and corn oil. Avocados actually have fat in them. Those are some of your more healthy fats. Fried foods like chips and fried chicken. Coconut oil, that's kind of like the new rage right now. Coconut oil is a fat, and then of course you have your sweets and stuff like the donuts and cakes and cookies and all that stuff that tastes really good. It's because of the fat. So why are lipids so important? Because a lot of people, if you hear about people saying, oh, I'm going on a diet, I can't have that, it has too much fat in it. Well, fats are important in a limited amount, okay? So lipids have a lot of functions. Cell membranes are mostly made up of lipids, and if we didn't have a cell membrane, your cells would fall apart. You would be a big pool of mess on the floor. Lipids are long-term energy storage. Don't confuse that with carbohydrates that are very short-term energy storage molecules. Lipids are long-term energy storage, so that's a good thing. So when your cells run out of carbohydrates or sugars to break down, they're going to revert and start breaking down the lipids that are stored in your body. And they also act as chemical messengers. So some of our hormones in our bodies are actually made up of lipids, and they send really important messages from one part of your body to another so that your body can work together. Proteins. Proteins are a really important part of your body too. All of these are really important parts of your body. The building blocks of proteins are made of amino acids. So I think of Legos. My son really likes to play Legos and build all these crazy things. But so when he ends up building his big fire truck, essentially it's just a bunch of Legos put together. Well, proteins are just basically a bunch of amino acids put together. And the way you put those together is what's going to end up building your protein and making the shape of it. Just like the way my son puts his little Lego pieces together will determine if it's a fire truck or a house or an airplane. They're all made out of the same pieces, but the way he built it together determines the different things that he makes. So the proteins in our bodies are basically the same thing. The way those amino acids are put together in our bodies determines the shape of the protein and what its function is going to be in our body. And we will get much more in depth in that process along the school year. But you do need to know that if you hear amino acids, those are the little parts that go together to make a protein. And here's what I mean about an amino acid. This is one amino acid right here. Here's one, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And essentially, that ends up being a big long chain of amino acids, which will create bonds together and make up a protein. And every protein has specific functions. Proteins can be found, Proteins can be found in lots of different food. Any kind of animal or meat that you eat is chock full of protein, and that's really good for you. Your body needs those proteins so it can break them down and use those amino acids to create the proteins that your body needs for lots of functions that your body will do. Nuts and beans are also a really good source of protein. Soy products, so if you've heard of edamame, that's a really good source of protein. Tofu, soy milk, lots of those have protein in them. And then some dairy products also are good sources of protein. You want to watch out though, because some of the dairy products are higher in fat, so then your body can't use that protein all the time like it's supposed to. So what I'm talking about is we've got a big burger here, so that burger has lots of protein in it. Turkey has protein. Here is sushi, fish is protein. Here's edamame, that's what I was talking about. Edamame is actually just soybeans, and then they can process those soybeans to make things like tofu and soy milk and stuff like that. Peanut butter, any kind of nut butter is a really good source of protein. Eggs are a good source of protein. Okay. So why are proteins important? Proteins are everything. Here's just a brief list of some of the things that proteins do in your body. They are your body structure. So they make up the bones in your body and the cartilage that hold those bones together. They make up the muscle that help move the bones. Proteins make up antibodies, and that's what helps your immune system fight off diseases. So it's really important that you have a high source of protein in your diet so that your body can keep making those antibodies and keep you healthy. Hemoglobin is a type of protein that's found in your blood, and that is responsible for carrying oxygen so that all the parts of your body get the oxygen that it needs. And then we'll talk more in class about something called enzymes. But enzymes are basically just helpers in any chemical process. So anything that happens inside your body uses lots of energy, but it needs help to get that done. So enzymes are going to be those helpers, and those are also made out of proteins. So basically you need to make sure you have lots of protein in your diet so that all of these things can be working all of the time for you. Okay, and then the very last thing that I was to talk about today is nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are made up of nucleotides, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. And nucleic acids serve different functions in our bodies. One of the main ones that we will end up talking about is DNA and RNA. So those are responsible for your genes and telling your body exactly what it's supposed to do. ATP is another type of nucleic acid, and that is an energy shuttle. So we'll talk more about ATP when we talk about energy molecules and how your body goes through cell respiration and how plants use photosynthesis. ATP is that big, important energy shuttle that your body uses. Nucleic acids are found in any food that you eat because every living thing has DNA in it. So every time you eat something that was a living thing, you're getting nucleic acids in your diet. And hopefully everything you eat used to be a living thing. Here is a picture. This is what I was talking about. This is a nucleotide right here. Okay, this is a thymine. There's a few different kinds. In DNA, there's 4. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about genetics. But these link together, and then a big long strand of those linked together is what creates our DNA. And this is a picture of DNA. So this is just basically, like we talked about, the proteins are made up of amino acids, just like my son's fire truck is made up of Legos. Same idea. This DNA is a nucleotide, which is made, this DNA is a nucleic acid that's made up of those building blocks, nucleotides. So nucleic acids are so important because, like I said, DNA is an example of nucleic acid, and DNA contains all the instructions for how your body is going to work. Anything that happens in your body, the instructions come from DNA. So that's a really important kind of nucleic acid. RNA is another type of nucleic acid, and that is what helps make the proteins that are in your body. And then the last one that we're going to talk about is ATP. It's just an energy shuttle. I kind of like to think of it like a battery, just short-term energy source that your body uses for basically anything that happens that requires energy. So that was a very quick, brief overview about carbohydrates and lipids and nucleic acids and proteins. And we will go more in depth in those when we talk more about the processes that use them or that make them. But it's important that you understand at least the idea and why they're important and where you can find those in your diet. Okay, make sure if you have any questions that you let me know, and I'll see you in class.